In the vast expanse of the Antarctic wilderness, where ancient secrets and the snow-covered landscape stretch endlessly, there exists a realm of mystery and intrigue. It is within this frozen realm that our story unfolds, a story of a man who stumbled upon an extraordinary discovery, only to vanish without a trace. A man by the name of James McClellan sat in front of his computer screen, scouring Google Earth for anomalies in the Antarctic terrain. Interestingly enough, a number of anomalies have been discovered all around Antarctica throughout the years, and most of them end up on social media pages that are dedicated to studying mysterious phenomena. The man detailed that as he zoomed in on a remote region of Antarctica, he couldn't believe what he was looking at. He described that nestled amidst the snow and ice was a peculiar formation, a perfect circle standing out against the stark white backdrop. The moment his discovery of the UFO embedded in the snow in Antarctica hit social media, it ignited a firestorm of speculation, fascination, and intrigue unlike anything seen before. As word spread like wildfire across platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit, people from all corners of the globe weighed in with their reactions, theories, and opinions. Social media users said that this is one of the clearest UFOs that has been found in Antarctica, while some users shared jokes, poking fun at the idea of extraterrestrial visitors in the icy wilderness of Antarctica, while others delved into deep discussions about the implications of such a monumental discovery. Facebook became a battleground of competing narratives, with users passionately debating the authenticity of the find. Posts flooded timelines, with some users sharing news articles and photos of the UFO, while others dismissed it as a hoax or a misinterpretation of natural phenomena. Oddly enough, although this photograph seems too good to be true, amateur researchers pointed out that this isn't the first time that an unidentified object has been found embedded within Antarctica's ice. Reports of UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica are as elusive as they are intriguing, with accounts dating back decades and spanning the furthest reaches of the continent. Witnesses describe encountering strange metallic objects protruding from the ice and snow, their sleek surfaces glinting in the faint polar light. Some describe the objects as disc-shaped, while others report seeing cylindrical or triangular craft buried beneath the frozen surface. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica comes from satellite imagery captured by various space agencies and private organizations. Images depicting anomalous shapes and formations hidden beneath the ice have surfaced, prompting speculation about the nature and origin of these mysterious sightings. Some suggest that the objects may be remnants of crashed spacecraft or ancient artifacts, while others propose more outlandish theories involving extraterrestrial visitation and government cover-ups. In recent years, advances in technology and the proliferation of satellite imagery have fueled renewed interest in the phenomenon of UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica. Researchers and enthusiasts scour satellite images in search of anomalies, hoping to uncover evidence of hidden truths lurking beneath the frozen surface. And while some dismiss the sightings as natural geological formations or optical illusions, others believe that they may hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. One of the challenges in unraveling the mystery of UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica lies in the remote and inhospitable nature of the continent itself. With vast expanses of uncharted territory and harsh environmental conditions, conducting thorough investigations into reported sightings can be logistically challenging and resource-intensive. Yet, despite these obstacles, researchers and explorers continue to brave the elements in search of answers, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth. One of the most tantalizing theories to emerge from the investigation into UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica is the notion of ancient civilizations or lost civilizations hidden beneath the ice. Proponents of this theory point to satellite imagery showing geometric shapes and patterns that appear to be of artificial origin, suggesting the presence of intelligent design. Some speculate that these ancient civilizations may have possessed advanced technology or knowledge far beyond our own, and that their legacy may still be buried beneath the ice, waiting to be discovered. In addition to ancient civilizations, some theorists suggest that UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica may be evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. According to this theory, the continent may serve as a hotspot for alien activity due to its remote location and inhospitable environment. Sightings of UFOs and unexplained phenomena in the region are cited as evidence of extraterrestrial presence, with some speculating that the objects buried beneath the ice may be spacecraft or artifacts left behind by visiting aliens. Despite the tantalizing nature of these theories, the truth behind the sightings of UFOs embedded in the snow of Antarctica remains elusive. Skeptics argue that the sightings may be the result of natural geological processes or misinterpretations of satellite imagery, while others dismiss them as hoaxes or delusions. The mysterious UFO presence above Antarctica. The history of UFO sightings above Antarctica dates back to the early days of polar exploration, when intrepid adventurers ventured into the uncharted reaches of the southernmost continent. Tales of strange lights dancing in the sky and mysterious objects darting among the clouds became a staple of Antarctic lore, passed down through generations of explorers and researchers. Yet, it was not until the advent of modern technology and satellite imagery that the true extent of UFO activity above Antarctica began to emerge. In recent years, a growing number of reports and sightings have been documented, sparking renewed interest and speculation among scientists, researchers, and UFO enthusiasts alike. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for UFO activity above Antarctica comes from satellite imagery captured by various space agencies and private organizations. Images depicting anomalous objects and unexplained phenomena have surfaced, raising questions about the nature and origin of these mysterious sightings. In one notable incident, satellite imagery captured by NASA's Earth Observing System revealed a series of strange, disc-shaped objects hovering above the Antarctic continent. The images, which quickly spread across social media and online forums, sparked intense debate and speculation about the possibility of extraterrestrial visitation. Similarly, reports from Antarctic research stations and expeditions have recounted encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, further fueling speculation about the presence of UFOs in the region. Witnesses describe seeing bright lights in the sky, erratic movements, and other inexplicable phenomena that defy conventional explanation. Theories abound as to the origin and nature of these mysterious sightings. Some suggest that the UFOs observed above Antarctica could be of terrestrial origin, such as secret military aircraft or experimental technology being tested in the remote reaches of the continent. Others speculate that the sightings may be evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, with Antarctica serving as a potential hotspot for alien activity due to its remote and inhospitable nature. Yet, amidst the speculation and conjecture, one thing remains certain. The sightings of UFOs above Antarctica represent a tantalizing mystery that continues to elude explanation. Despite advances in technology and our understanding of the universe, the true nature of these mysterious phenomena remains shrouded in mystery. One of the challenges in unraveling the mystery of UFOs above Antarctica lies in the remote and inaccessible nature of the continent itself. With vast expanses of uncharted territory and harsh environmental conditions, conducting thorough investigations into reported sightings can be logistically challenging and resource-intensive. However, efforts to study and understand UFO activity above Antarctica are ongoing. Scientists and researchers continue to analyze satellite imagery, gather eyewitness accounts, and deploy cutting-edge technology in an effort to shed light on the strange phenomenon. During the early expeditions to Antarctica, tales of UFO sightings became woven into the fabric of exploration lore, adding an element of mystery to the already daunting challenges of navigating the icy wilderness. From the late 19th century onwards, as explorers ventured deeper into the uncharted reaches of the continent, reports of strange lights in the sky and mysterious objects hovering above the horizon began to surface. One of the earliest documented sightings occurred during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration in the early 20th century. During Admiral Byrd's historic expeditions to Antarctica in the 1920s and 1930s, reports of UFO sightings became increasingly common among members of his crew. Accounts from Byrd's expeditions recount sightings of luminous objects darting through the sky, hovering above the ice shelves, and disappearing into the depths of the Antarctic wilderness. Despite efforts to rationalize and explain these sightings, many remained perplexed by the inexplicable nature of the phenomena. In his notebook, Byrd describes venturing into the vast reaches of the planet's interior, covering a distance of 1,700 miles while traveling through mountains, lakes, rivers, lush vegetation, and a variety of fauna. American Navy officer Richard Byrd, who was born in 1888, devoted his professional life to exploring new areas and leading expeditions there. Admiral Byrd is primarily recognized for his proficiency in polar exploration. He served as a navigator on numerous expeditions that descended into the North Pole, Antarctica, South Pole, and Arctic. Notably, Byrd claimed to have found a route to Agartha, the mythical city thought to be situated in the center of the Earth, during his first flight over the North Pole. Byrd joined the U.S. Navy as an ensign after earning his degree from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1911. He received his flight training at the U.S. Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida, and was a distinguished member of the Navy. He created navigational techniques and equipment for NC flying boats after the war, one of which accomplished the Navy's first transatlantic aircraft flight in 1909. In addition, he helped with dirigibles intended for transatlantic travel. His Arctic career began in 1924, when he commanded a small naval aviation detachment attached to Commander D.B. Macmillan's Arctic expedition, which was based at Etah and travelled to western Greenland. Inspired by his flight over glaciers and sea ice in western Greenland, Byrd was adamant about reaching the North Pole. Byrd, in the role of navigator, and Floyd Bennett, in the role of pilot, claimed to have undertaken the first aeroplane trip to the North Pole on May 9, 1926, departing from Kings Bay, Spitsbergen, Norway, and returning. The only problem during the 15.5-hour trip was an oil leak from their Fokker tri-motor airplane's starboard engine. They were acclaimed as national heroes and awarded the U.S. Congressional Medal of Honor as a result of their accomplishment. Still, there was always a question as to whether they had actually made it to the North Pole. After Byrd's death, one of his early collaborators, Bernd Balchen, even claimed that the flight to the North Pole was a fraud. In May of 1927, Byrd helped American aviator Charles A. Lindbergh during his solo transatlantic voyage by offering navigational instruction. Byrd played a crucial role in arranging for Lindbergh to have access to a specially lengthened runway and in getting him ready for the flight. Byrd and his three friends made the decision to try their own west-to-east transatlantic flight after being inspired by Lindbergh's accomplishment. On the Ross Ice Shelf, close to the Ross Sea, Byrd erected Little America, a large and well-stocked station, during his first tour of Antarctica in the years 1928 to 1930. Flying over the Antarctic continent, this expedition was the biggest and best-equipped one at the time. They found the mountain range known as the Rockefeller Mountains, and they dubbed the unexplored area that lay beyond it Marie Byrd Land, in honor of Byrd's spouse. The Admiral's supposed flight into Earth is the most fascinating part of the story. Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd flew to the North Pole in 1947 while serving in the U.S. Navy. There are rumors that his plane may have entered the inner Earth instead of just flying over the pole. Journal entries from his notebook relate his excursion into the Earth's interior, which he traveled 1,700 kilometers across, seeing scenes of mountains, lakes, rivers, verdant vegetation, and fauna. The story begins in this journal, when unidentified planes arrived to welcome the renowned aviator. It was clear from his unfamiliarity with these flying devices that he had come onto something entirely new. They told him that because of his excellent moral and ethical standards, he had been granted entry into Agartha, the famous city situated deep under the earth. These entities made the choice to forge closer ties with the outside world in order to protect our planet and avoid it being destroyed along with their own civilization. With their lives irrevocably changed, Admiral Byrd and his crew were flown back to civilization by their guides. The North and South Poles, according to Admiral Byrd, are only two of many gates that lead to our planet's inner core. Admiral Byrd stated that earlier scientists had also believed that the interior Earth had its own inside sun. It is hypothesized that the Earth's poles are convex rather than concave, as is the common view. This would imply the presence of apertures through which aircraft and ships could be able to fly or float. The story's believers said that although the American media reported Admiral Byrd's discoveries, they were soon covered up by a covert international cover-up that our well-meaning authorities had masterminded. The editor of Flying Saucer magazine, Ray Palmer, produced a detailed piece regarding Admiral Byrd's discoveries. The US government reportedly obtained, destroyed, or confiscated almost every copy of the article before destroying the printing press plates. It is a sign of naivete to think that such a cover-up could not be planned. A very identical thing happened to an article on Admiral Byrd's discovery that was published in National Geographic. After it was released, US authorities actively searched for and destroyed almost every copy of that specific edition. This brings up a fascinating question. If the Agartha story was false after all, why would the government be so terrified of this information being shared? Secret bases. The notion of clandestine installations and covert operations in Antarctica traces its origins back to the early days of polar exploration, when nations vied for dominance in the race to uncover the secrets of the frozen wilderness. With the signing of the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, which established Antarctica as a scientific preserve and banned military activity on the continent, the idea of secret bases took on an air of intrigue and mystery. One of the most persistent rumors surrounding secret bases in Antarctica revolves around the notion of German remnants from World War II establishing hidden strongholds in the icy wilderness. According to some accounts, high-ranking members of the German party fled to Antarctica following the fall of Germany, where they purportedly built underground bunkers and research facilities in a bid to continue their experiments and pursue their agenda of global domination. While mainstream historians dismiss such claims as fanciful and unsubstantiated, proponents of the theory point to alleged sightings of German submarines and aircraft in the vicinity of Antarctica, as well as purported evidence of underground tunnels and structures hidden beneath the ice. Additionally, declassified documents from the era suggest that both Allied and Axis powers were keenly interested in Antarctica for its strategic and scientific significance, adding a layer of plausibility to the notion of secret German bases on the continent. Another theory posits that modern nations, including the United States and Russia, have established covert installations in Antarctica for purposes ranging from scientific research to military experimentation. Proponents of this theory point to satellite imagery showing anomalous structures and unusual activity in remote regions of the continent, as well as accounts from whistleblowers and alleged insiders who claim to have first-hand knowledge of secret bases hidden beneath the ice. One of the most widely cited pieces of evidence for the existence of secret bases in Antarctica comes from the declassified documents released by WikiLeaks in recent years. Among the trove of documents are references to a purported secret area of Antarctica, a top-secret facility allegedly operated by the United States government for classified research and development projects. While the authenticity of these documents remains a subject of debate, they have fueled speculation and curiosity about the true extent of human activity in Antarctica. In addition to alleged military installations, some theorists speculate that Antarctica may be home to hidden bases operated by extraterrestrial beings or advanced civilizations. Accounts of UFO sightings and unexplained phenomena in the region have led some to believe that Antarctica holds the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe, and that secret alien bases may lie hidden beneath its icy surface. Despite the lack of concrete evidence to support such claims, the allure of secret bases in Antarctica continues to captivate the imaginations of researchers. Whether rooted in fact or fantasy, the idea of hidden installations in the frozen wilderness serves as a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown and the unexplored. The unresolved mystery of Jim Sullivan's disappearance. In the annals of unsolved mysteries, few cases are as baffling and mysterious as the disappearance of singer-songwriter Jim Sullivan. A promising talent on the brink of success, Sullivan's vanishing act in the vast expanse of the California desert has captured the imagination of sleuths and music aficionados for decades. As the years have passed, the mystery has only deepened, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and speculation. Jim Sullivan was a folk rock musician whose debut album, UFO, released in 1969, garnered critical acclaim and garnered him a devoted following in the burgeoning Los Angeles music scene. With his haunting vocals, introspective lyrics, and soulful guitar playing, Sullivan seemed poised for stardom, his talent shining brightly against the backdrop of the turbulent 1960s. However, just as Sullivan's star was on the rise, tragedy struck. In March 1975, while en route from Los Angeles to Nashville to pursue his musical aspirations, Sullivan embarked on a fateful journey through the vast Mojave Desert. It would be a journey from which he would never return. The circumstances surrounding Sullivan's disappearance are shrouded in mystery and speculation. According to reports, Sullivan's car was found abandoned on a remote desert road, with no sign of struggle or foul play. His belongings, including his guitar, were discovered inside the vehicle, seemingly untouched. Yet, there was no trace of Sullivan himself, prompting a massive search effort by authorities and volunteers alike. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the search for Jim Sullivan yielded few clues and no conclusive answers. Sightings were reported, leads were followed, but each new development seemed to only deepen the mystery surrounding his disappearance. Some speculated that Sullivan had met with foul play, while others theorized that he had simply wandered off into the desert, overwhelmed by personal demons or the pressures of the music industry. One of the most tantalizing theories to emerge from the investigation into Sullivan's disappearance is the notion of a paranormal or extraterrestrial encounter. Given the title of Sullivan's debut album and the otherworldly themes present in his music, some have speculated that his Vanishing act may have been connected to his fascination with the unknown and the unexplained. Sullivan himself had purportedly spoken of experiencing strange and otherworldly phenomena in the days leading up to his disappearance. According to reports, he had confided in friends and acquaintances about encounters with mysterious lights in the desert sky and a sense of being followed or watched. While some dismissed these accounts as the ramblings of a troubled artist, others saw them as potential clues to unlocking the mystery of Sullivan's fate. In the years that followed Sullivan's disappearance, his music continued to garner a cult following among fans and collectors, with his album UFO achieving legendary status among aficionados of obscure and overlooked gems from the era. Yet, despite the enduring legacy of his music, the mystery of Jim Sullivan's disappearance remained unsolved, casting a shadow over his career and leaving a void in the hearts of those who knew and admired him. Numerous theories have been proposed over the years in an attempt to unravel the mystery of Sullivan's disappearance. Some suggest that he may have succumbed to the harsh conditions of the desert, while others speculate that he may have intentionally disappeared, seeking to escape the pressures of fame and the constraints of society. Yet, amidst the speculation and conjecture, one thing remains certain. The disappearance of Jim Sullivan is a mystery that continues to haunt and intrigue those who dare to delve into its depths. As the years pass and the trail grows colder, the truth behind Sullivan's Vanishing act may never be known, leaving his fate to linger in the realm of the unknown and the unexplained. In the annals of music history, Jim Sullivan's disappearance stands as a testament to the fragility of fame and the enduring allure of the unknown. Though his voice may have been silenced, his music lives on, a haunting reminder of a talent lost too soon and a mystery that may never be solved. The mysterious Art Laraby encounter. Art Laraby was pulled from his slumber in the middle of the night in Ontario, Canada, one evening in 1973, and found himself in the midst of an encounter with the otherworldly that would give him plenty to think about. Not only did he see what appeared to be a spacecraft, but he also saw some kind of strange power extraction from power lines immediately beneath this futuristic car. Even among UFO circles, not much is known about the encounter, which is maybe not surprising given that it happened during one of the busiest UFO waves in history. But this story begs even more questions regarding the nature of the alien and UFO mysteries. It is unclear exactly when Art Laraby came home on Kukugami Lake Road one evening in 1973 after seeing his wife in the hospital. He had worked all day, so he was exhausted by now and chose to go straight to bed even though it wasn't quite 10 o'clock yet. He must have been really tired, because as soon as his head touched the pillow, he dozed off. Just after midnight, his neighbor started hammering on his door out of panic, completely upsetting the peaceful atmosphere of the night. They nearly knocked the door down, according to Laraby, in their desperation to rouse him. He got out of bed and made his way to the front door. When he opened it, he saw his neighbor leaning over the power lines, clearly excited and panicked, yelling at him to come outside and see what he was looking at. Now that he was awake, he was starting to object and dismiss his neighbor's worries, claiming that whatever he was gazing at would be the moon. But his neighbor persisted, and in the end, Art gave in. And the moment he was outdoors, he saw exactly why his neighbor was upset. Something this big, humongous, that was as bright as a light bulb that stretched the breadth of the 3 power line poles was seen overhead in the night sky. Even more bizarrely, it seemed as though it was taking power from the power lines, since a wire was leading from the item and connected to them some 40 feet below. He calculated that he was between 500 and 1,000 feet away from the object's hover. Staring at the strange happenings around them, the 2 men stayed exactly where they were. Art calculated that they stood there for 20 to 25 minutes without exchanging a word. Then the thing took off and vanished without warning. The 2 witnesses didn't even see it leave because this evacuation happened so quickly. They saw that the power lines themselves were all lit up, making their surroundings appear even brighter than the daytime when they returned their focus to the power lines below where the item had been hovering. Later on, Laraby would say that he could only see the glow of the craft rather than the actual craft itself, describing the event as one of the most spectacular scenes he had ever seen and something he would never forget. Art asked his other neighbor if she had witnessed the strange aerial display the night before when he went to see her the next morning. She claimed not to have, even though the bright light flooding her bedroom at the time of the sighting had startled her up. She went back to sleep after concluding that the light was probably there because the kids had left the lights on because she was still feeling sleepy. If Art hadn't questioned her, she never would have given it more thought. It dawned on her late that the few oddities she had witnessed that night were the result of an alien car parked directly in front of her home. Art said he was sorry for not waking her up, but he hadn't considered doing so because there was just so much excitement. He told his neighbor what they saw, including the wire that connected the craft to the power lines below. He was able to discern that the glow originated from a massive craft that might have come from another planet, even if he was unable to see the specifics. It would also turn out that Art's mother had seen something quite similar many years before, which she would always refer to as a flying saucer. In fact, the item she had seen was disc-shaped and had little windows all around it, and she even showed her son a depiction of it. She was outside with Art and his brother, who were still quite little, when they were spotted. After getting over the bizarre aspect of what was happening, she grabbed the kids and ran inside, fearing for their safety when she saw the object hovering over the trees. Art remembered his mother telling him that she had been terrified at the time of the incident. Naturally, one could wonder if Art's mother's experience seeing a UFO was just a coincidence, or if there was a deeper, unidentified connection. However, it should be noted that this is all conjecture on our part. Even though what happened that evening in 1973 was strange and thrilling, he didn't think it was life-changing because of his mother's earlier sighting. According to him, his mother's remarks were the reason he had always been aware of such possibilities. Though he had always been receptive to the idea, he did declare that he was now a true believer after seeing it for himself. There are a number of curious aspects to this encounter, not the least of which is the fact that the object seemed to be receiving power from the power lines below. Contrary to popular belief, these kinds of subtleties are present in a lot more encounters than we might realize. For example, there have been several very identical reports of people seeing what appear to be alien-looking craft hovering over power lines. However, several people have claimed to have seen these odd objects hovering over nuclear power facilities and other power plants. Numerous UFO sightings have even been reported hovering over water towers. The commonality among these sightings is that the witnesses have consistently stated that they saw energy or water being extracted throughout the encounters. The mystery of the Foo Fighters. In the midst of the chaos and uncertainty of World War II, Allied pilots flying over the European theatre encountered a phenomenon that defied explanation: anomalous objects that danced and darted through the skies, seemingly tracking their aircraft with uncanny precision. These mysterious aerial phenomena, dubbed Foo Fighters by baffled pilots, would go on to become one of the most enduring mysteries in the annals of UFO lore. The term Foo Fighters was coined by Allied pilots in the early 1940s, drawing inspiration from a popular comic strip of the time, Smokey Stover, which featured a character named Foo. The sightings themselves were described as glowing balls of light that followed aircraft, performing seemingly impossible maneuvers and disappearing without a trace. While some dismissed the sightings as optical illusions or atmospheric phenomena, Others believed that the Foo Fighters were evidence of advanced technology or extraterrestrial visitation. Reports of Foo Fighters were not limited to any one theater of war or nationality, with sightings reported by both Allied and Axis pilots across Europe and the Pacific. Accounts varied widely, with some pilots describing the objects as small, glowing orbs, while others reported larger metallic craft capable of outpacing their aircraft with ease. Despite efforts to intercept and investigate the Foo Fighters, they remained elusive, disappearing as suddenly as they had appeared. One notable instance of these interactions may be the Mothership's incidents of 1942. The reports were so severe that the British Ministry of Defence decided to look into them themselves. According to their report, the crew of a Lancaster bomber would observe a huge object flying overhead. They would put its dimensions between 200 and 300 feet. 8 lights, each in a pair, were shining beneath the enormous item. It appeared to be travelling at about 500 miles per hour, given its apparent altitude. Moreover, the Lancaster's captain would later claim to have seen the identical item some months earlier. While on a bombing mission over German-occupied territory, the incident occurred once more. This time, it would hover a few minutes below their position before vanishing. Even with the official reports, the sightings remain unexplained. On April 5, 1943, pilot Jerry Casey was doing blind flying exercises with a student pilot. In these exercises, the student effectively puts his head under a hood and uses only navigational aids. Casey noticed a bright flash of light coming from Santiago Mountain, which overlooked Long Beach, California. The flare became an object hurtling towards them as their plane continued to fly over the Pacific Ocean, which was blue below them. When his pupil went beneath the hood, Casey would give him the command to emerge. He saw a strange wobble impact the craft as he was doing it, and then all of a sudden, it was at their side. It felt as though the relocation took only a few seconds. The aircraft was, as Casey would later say, unlike any aeroplane I have ever seen. Casey would still reach for his camera, amazed. He stopped himself as he was about to take the picture. All of a sudden, he thought the craft might be a covert military vehicle. He took his camera away, thinking he would get into trouble for taking images of such a car without permission. The object remained next to their aircraft for a further 30 seconds before doing an odd, curved spin. The boat was vanishing over the sea in an instant. After landing, Casey had a private conversation with his student about the situation. They would both concur that the craft was travelling at an estimated speed of about 7,000 mph. It was also devoid of any visible propulsion, including a propeller. They both concurred that the craft seemed to sway or curve. This is a thought-provoking observation. According to certain UFO researchers, space or even planets' atmospheres can be bent to facilitate UFO propulsion. While it is actually bending one location to another, this creates the impression to those who witness them that they emerge and reappear quickly. For a while, Casey spoke very little about the event. His conviction that he had seen covert military test aircraft was the primary cause of this. However, Casey would finally come forward with his tale as more UFO reports flooded the press after the war. He would also freely consider the possibility of extraterrestrial involvement because no military aircraft, as far as is known, is capable of what he observed. An American serviceman on a B-17 bomber reported seeing the object. It happened just before the landing started, and the plane's target was a train depot. The shooter on the right side of the aircraft was the witness. The jet was crossing the channel at roughly 1 a.m. when a different crew member abruptly reported that he had spotted bandits at 6 o'clock. The gunner would then get ready to fire. But the gun seemed to jam, even though he couldn't identify a clear cause for it. He saw the bandits his crewmate had mentioned when he was dissecting the rifle that appeared to be inexplicably damaged. Still, they looked like nothing like any aeroplane he had ever seen before. They had no markings or insignia and seemed to be glowing spheres. The bomber's radio and electrical systems abruptly failed as one of these odd objects moved to the side of the aircraft. This caused the plane to start to drift apart from the other bombers in the formation. This posed a special risk since it made them a simple mark for opposing fighters and concerning the peculiar spheres. But the mysterious item quickly disappeared as the plane plummeted back. The radio, the electrics, and the plane's engines restarted a few minutes later. Stranger still, the witness's gun unjammed out of nowhere. Another incident involving a B-17 aircraft that occurred in September 1943, nearly a year earlier, is also included in the same book. The aircraft was over Stuttgart on a bombing mission. They were traveling at about 3,000 feet when they suddenly observed a cluster composed of small, round objects that were silver in color, ahead of them in a formation of multiple hostile planes. Moreover, these things seemed to fall out of the sky. Both the crew of the B-17 and the crew of the aircraft itself saw the scene. They soon discovered that the unusual spheres were not German, since the enemy planes seemed to be oblivious to these bright objects as they continued their flight. In the end, they would come to rest and hover at the same height as the B-17 aircraft. Nevertheless, a few of the objects touched one of the plane's wings. When it did, it burst into flames and started to descend from the sky. The crew was thought to be dead, and the plane was never found. The majority of reports of Foo Fighter sightings remained just that, sightings, which makes this a particularly peculiar case. This seems to be the lone instance of a Foo Fighter resulting in both the plane's destruction and the 10 crew members' fatalities. During a return flight after a mission over the Plajo oil refinery in Palembang, Sumatra, in early August 1944, First Officer Russell Watson reported witnessing a bizarre and confusing type of new weapon. Furthermore, the same light objects were seen by other pilots and crew members on the same bombing mission. It was just 10 minutes into the return trip when the sighting happened. He would go on to describe how one of the aircraft appeared to be under attack for 1 hour and 10 minutes in his report. According to Watson, a few reddish-orange balls that looked to be barely bigger than a baseball emerged out of nowhere. There was a momentary flash as they were moving, and then an odd explosion happened. Even more bizarrely, these balls would shatter into multiple fragments that split off and eventually reunited. Between 200 and 300 flashes and explosions were reported by the crew members as a result of the odd, luminous spheres moving across the skies. One of the aircraft positioned itself to launch a gun at the unusual objects. When they did, however, the globes appeared untouched, even though they had hit their targets. American pilot Hara Kao, who was stationed in France, saw another Foo Fighter incident occur early in November 1944. They saw unusual lights that had seemingly arrived out of nowhere, flying beside their Northrop P-61 Black Widow night fighter as they navigated over the Rhine Valley. The crew initially tried to shake the lights off by making evasive movements, not knowing what the item was. They would stay at the side of the aircraft, though. The team decided to shoot because they thought they were about to be attacked. Just when it seemed like they had found their target, the plane was shaken by a massive explosion that bent the plexiglass dome on top. It's possible to argue over whether or not this is one of the few instances of a plane managing to destroy itself, or if the weird lights just vanished. Several pilots with whom Kao flew over the Rhine Valley reported seeing weird lights as well. Yet many would rather not report the occurrence, preferring to discuss it with other pilots who had seen similar things, in part because their superiors had previously issued orders to maintain confidentiality of such sightings. Unreported sightings of Foo Fighters by American and British pilots during World War II number in the dozens, if not hundreds. Furthermore, numerous Soviet troops reported seeing the same objects, and our focus will now shift to this area. Other Soviet military have reported seeing weird silvery objects over Europe on multiple occasions. Many of these sightings have come to us through Paul Stonehill, a UFO researcher who was born in the Soviet Union. One took place in July 1943, right before the Battle of Kursk. A huge, silvery disk was observed by Soviet troops hovering right over the German position in the final seconds before the conflict started. Initially, Soviet officers thought the object was a brand new, top-secret German weapon, but after a few moments, it just disappeared. There was no immediate response from the vehicle, much like in the great majority of sightings of Foo Fighters. It seemed to observe the proceedings only. Nobody was able to take a picture of the thing, so someone drew it right away and gave it to a few Soviet officials who signed it to confirm what they had seen. Not quite 2 months later, only a few days after the battle in Kursk finished, there was another sighting. Gennady Zhelaginov, a senior Soviet official, would later testify that he saw a sickle-shaped vehicle moving at a rate that was significantly quicker than any jet he had ever seen. Perhaps of relevance in this case is the large number of flying wing UFO reports that were made throughout the United States in the late 1940s and early 1950s, some of which were clearly sickle-shaped. The craft's exterior was either dark blue or black, with a bright orange light in the center. This is an even more remarkable element that is often mentioned in sightings from the modern age. There are sightings of Foo Fighters from far further afield, although it is evident that the great majority of sightings were over Europe, where much of the deadliest fighting happened, both on the ground and in the air. For instance, Kent Courtney was traveling from Brazil to Morocco in a transport plane in February 1943. He was above the South Atlantic Ocean at around 10,000 feet when he looked around and saw several bright lights coming directly at him. At the last moment, they would move away from him and pass his jet. But in a matter of seconds, they had swung around and were coming at his jet again, but from the back. They would pause beside him for an instant, before vanishing as swiftly into the night sky as they had arrived. Courtney planned to notify the US Air Force of the sighting as soon as he touched down in Casablanca. He would remember that he was told to keep it to ourselves in official guidance. In a later interview, he told a newspaper in Louisiana that the Air Force wanted to quell the investigation. But Courtney knew he had witnessed something really unusual, and he started talking to a lot of other US Air Force pilots, many of whom would relate similar experiences. Numerous more reports of Foo Fighter sightings in the Pacific Ocean included US Navy ships. Indeed, one of the most fascinating took place on August 5, 1942, during the initial American offensive of the Second World War. Just before 10 in the morning on the day in question, the lookouts abruptly reported that they could see unidentifiable aircraft that appeared to be moving towards them. From the deck, every member of the crew could see the weird object, which was estimated to be between 3,000 and 4,000 feet high, because the sky itself was crystal clear. Officers saw that the object was unmistakably a metallic, silvery, cigar-shaped UFO when they examined it using strong military-grade binoculars. Furthermore, the upper side of it featured a circular dome. According to other sources, there were also portholes around the dome. This is an intriguing finding, since numerous reports of previous Foo Fighter sightings frequently mention the absence of any windows or markings at all. The object kept moving towards the ship, and the gunners fired when it got close enough. A number of adjacent warships also started firing as soon as the firing started, but none of the gunfire seemed to affect the alien thing in the slightest. The unusual vessel then made a sharp turn and swiftly circled the boats. At this point, the little fleet's guns all started to fire at the target, but none of their hits seemed to register despite their best attempts. Eventually, the item would vanish. Thousands of the crew members on board the ships saw the occurrence. According to one witness, the silvery object had flown through the air at a speed of about 1,000 miles per hour. As the war came to a conclusion in early February 1945, odd objects approached the USS Wasp as it steamed off the coast of the Caroline Islands, providing another fascinating sighting. An incoming radar contact was reported to Norman Stark, the ship's commander. It was around 10 miles away and at an estimated altitude of 30,000 feet. Stark would launch 5 Grumman Hellcats from the ship to intercept the unusual object because he thought it was an enemy fighter. Even though the fighters could reach nearly 400 miles per hour, it soon became clear that they were far too sluggish for the strange craft. A few months later, right before the atomic bombing operations over Japan, there was another incident with Foo Fighters, this time in the clear sky during the day. The SS Calvin Victory was in the waters off the Marshall Islands this time. Abruptly, a lookout reported seeing a silver object directly overhead. Captain Wesley Brown was going to inspect the item. It was bright, silver, and circular in shape, he would attest. He would give the order to fire on his crew right away. They started shooting at the metal disc, but it didn't move. Their target seemed to be directly hit by the bullets, but it didn't seem like any harm had been done. When Brown realized they were squandering ammunition, he gave the order to stop firing. It's interesting to note that, despite not moving or getting any closer to them, the weird object stayed over the boat all night long before ultimately taking off. Furthermore, it seems that during the Second World War, in the midst of the Foo Fighter wave, some of the earliest USO encounters occurred. The first of them happened on October 12, 1943, maybe in the evening. Matthew Mangle was keeping a watch on a US Navy supply ship in the Persian Gulf that evening. A huge disk beneath the surface of the water would suddenly catch his attention. Additionally, the object's green glow greatly illuminated the surrounding water. It would stay with the ship for a few minutes, then shoot off into the distance at high speed. A bizarre, enormous circular vehicle appeared to hover under the water beneath the USS McCracken as it went over it near the Solomon Islands, a sight that the crew of the ship saw in amazement well over a year later, across several days at the end of January 1945. They all observed that it had a dull, silvery finish, sharp features, and measured around 20 feet in width, but it would take the 4 crew members years before they would disclose the sighting. When the Coast Guard cargo vessel was off the coast of Palmyra at the end of June 1944, there was an especially unsettling story involving an underwater Foo fighter. Edward Ludwig was the ship's commander. On the day in question, he would get an urgent message asking for his help in looking for a US Navy plane that had vanished out of sight. In an attempt to find the seemingly crashed vehicle, Ludwig moved his vessel in the general area where the jet was last seen. There appeared to be no indication of the missing plane, even though his boat and about a dozen others were participating in the hunt. Furthermore, they were unable to locate even a single piece of debris. But the next day, things took an even crazier turn. A dazzling light appeared over Ludwig's boat as he stood on the bridge. Whatever it was, he realized as he tried to concentrate on the odd object that it was neither a planet, star, or aeroplane. He would characterize it as resembling a sphere. Moreover, it was perfectly silent while being so near. It would move for a few moments at a period, halt, and then move again. After spending almost half an hour floating over the ship, it started to move away from the vessel. Interestingly enough, it headed towards the area where the US Navy had been looking for the missing plane the day before. He would never get an adequate explanation for what had transpired over those 2 days, even if he wondered if the 2 episodes were related. Even though it would be tempting to believe that the plane in issue may have collided with the Foo fighter and as a result suffered engine failure, that explanation would not account for the lack of wreckage. A few months later, as the end of the war drew closer, an additional fascinating Foo fighter USO episode would transpire in mid-1945. In stormy waters close to the island of Attack, the USS Delaroff, a transport ship operated by the US Army, came across unusual underwater activity while on a return trip to Seattle. While navigating these challenging conditions, a few members of the crew noticed an odd, sizable vehicle emerge from the water and swiftly take off into the sky. Robert Crawford was the craft's radio operator. Abruptly, he would hear the noise made by those on board, and he would look in the direction that the crew members were pointing. Approximately 2 miles away, he was more than shocked to witness a gigantic object climbing high into the sky. It was spherical, dark, and easily noticed against the setting sun, according to his later description. Crawford would also remember that the object, which was between 150 and 200 feet in diameter, lacked any portholes, markings, or other identification. By now, all of the ship's gunners were at their positions, prepared to fire. Nevertheless, the authorization to do so was not received, because the item did not seem to pose a threat to the ship. It would eventually move away from their location and vanish into the distance after circling the ship twice at a height of about 500 feet. It's still a mystery, but the sighting ranks among the top UFO sightings over wide waters.